The vanished friend. The night Hannah went missing, the lake was still. No ripples, no sound, just a sheet of black glass reflecting a moon too bright for comfort. I remember standing at the dock, her jacket folded neatly on the bench, her shoes aligned with precision. Hannah was not the type to vanish without explanation. She was the anchor in our group, the one who always reminded the rest of us to text when we got home, the one who carried plasters in her bag for blisters on late-night walks. But that night, she was simply gone. The police chalked it up to drowning. An accident. People go swimming at night all the time, they said, as if Hannah had ever been reckless. They dragged the lake for days, found nothing, then quietly closed the file. I couldn't accept it. A year later, I returned to the lakeside town where we grew up. The cottages looked the same, the pines still swayed with the wind. But something felt heavier in the air. Whispers followed me when I passed the corner store. Old friends avoided my eyes. Even Hannah's parents, pale and fragile, seemed to look through me instead of at me. That was when I saw it. At the edge of town, taped to a crumbling brick wall, a flyer curled from weather and time. Faded, almost forgotten. But there, a photograph of Hannah, the same one from the missing posters, but with a crude red X slashed across her face, and beneath it, scrawled in marker, "She never left." My stomach dropped. The words weren't a prank. They were a threat. I tore the flyer down and shoved it into my bag. That night, unable to sleep, I drove back to the lake. Mist rose from the water, swallowing the dock. The air smelled of damp earth and secrets. Long kept, that's when I saw the light. A lantern glow, faint but deliberate, bobbing on the far side of the shore. Too steady to be a camper. Too late for a fisherman. I followed the narrow trail around the water, branches clawing at my arms. The glow grew brighter until I broke through the trees. The lantern hung from a hook, swaying in the breeze. Beneath, it scratched into the wooden planks of the abandoned boathouse, were 3 words carved deep into the grain. "She is waiting." My breath caught. Behind me, the woods creaked. A branch snapped. Someone was there. I spun, heart racing, and saw a figure standing in the shadows watching me. The figure didn't move, just stood there, half swallowed by shadows, head tilted slightly as if curious. My pulse thundered in my ears. "Who's there?" I whispered, though the night devoured my voice. The figure turned and vanished into the trees, footsteps muffled by pine needles. Instinct screamed at me to run, but something stronger pulled me forward. I sprinted after them, the lantern's glow shrinking behind me. The trail twisted, roots clawing at my shoes. Each time I thought I was gaining ground, the figure slipped further into the dark. Then, just as suddenly as they appeared, they were gone. Silence. I stopped, lungs burning, the woods pressing in. That's when I noticed it. A slip of paper pinned to a tree with a rusted nail. I pulled it free with trembling hands. It was a torn page from a diary. Hannah's handwriting. "They're watching me. I don't know who to trust anymore. If something happens, don't believe what they say." My breath caught. She had known. She had been afraid. I stuffed the page into my pocket and turned back, toward the boathouse. The lantern was gone. Only darkness remained. The next morning, I went to the one place I knew I'd find answers. The old diner on Main Street, where our group of friends used to meet every Saturday. The bell above the door chimed as I entered, the smell of burnt coffee and grease wrapping around me like memory. Inside, 2 familiar faces sat in the corner booth. Evan, tall and sharp-eyed, who had been Hannah's boyfriend at the time. And Marcy, quiet, always scribbling sketches in her notebooks. Their conversation died the moment they saw me. "You're back," Evan muttered, more accusation than welcome. Slid into the booth across from them, the diary page burning against my thigh. "You know something, don't you? About that night." Marcy's hand tightened around her mug. Evan looked away, jaw clenched. Finally, Marcy whispered, "It's not safe to ask questions." Her words crawled down my spine. I leaned closer. Hannah didn't just vanish. I found her handwriting. She was scared. Evan's eyes snapped back to mine, sharp and cold. Then you should stop digging before you end up the same way. The diner felt suddenly smaller, the air too thick to breathe. As I left, I glanced back. Marcy was staring at me wide-eyed, like she wanted to say something more. But Evan's hand gripped hers tightly, and her lips pressed shut. On the way out, I passed the bulletin board near the door. Amongst the faded event flyers and lost pet posters, a fresh photograph had been pinned up that morning. It was of me. A red X slashed through my face. And beneath it, in the same marker as before, "Stop looking." The photo of my face with that crimson X burned in my mind the whole walk back to the motel. Whoever had posted it knew me, watched me, and wanted me silenced. The threat was no longer abstract, it was personal. Sleep didn't come. Every creak of the building felt like someone outside my door. By dawn, I gave up pretending and drove back toward the lake, needing answers more than rest. The town was already stirring, shop fronts opening, fishermen hauling gear. But people glanced at me like I was an intruder. Like they knew something I didn't. At the edge of the water, I found the sheriff waiting. Sheriff Blake had been the lead investigator when Hannah disappeared. Now he looked older, heavier, with suspicion carved deep into his features. "You're back digging where you don't belong," he muttered, watching the ripples on the water. "I found Hannah's handwriting," I said. She knew she was being watched. She was afraid. His jaw tightened, but his eyes betrayed a flicker of recognition. "Whatever you think you found, let it go. The lake takes what it wants. It's done." But I saw it. The way his hand fidgeted near his belt, the way his gaze avoided mine. He was hiding something. I drove to the Whitmore property on the far side of town. Hannah's parents had left years ago, unable to bear the memories. But the house remained, its shutters sagged, paint peeling, weeds swallowing the path. Inside, dust coated everything. The silence was heavy, broken only by the groan of floorboards under my weight. I searched the rooms, desperate for anything Hannah might have left behind. In her old bedroom, I found it, a sketchbook, edges frayed, tucked beneath a loose floorboard. Page after page was filled with drawings of eyes, watching eyes, some human, some distorted, staring from trees, from windows, from the lake itself. On the last page, scrawled in frantic strokes, were 4 words: "Don't trust your friends." My hands trembled. I snapped the book shut and froze. A car door slammed outside. Footsteps crunched on gravel. Someone was here. Through the cracked blinds, I saw Evan's car. He was walking up the path, shoulders tense, scanning the house like he already knew I was inside. I slipped out the back, clutching the sketchbook, and ducked into the woods. Branches clawed at my arms as I moved deeper into the shadows. From behind me, Evan's voice carried through the empty house. "I know you're here. Stop digging before it swallows you too." I didn't stop. Not until I reached the safety of the trees, chest heaving, heart pounding. When I finally opened the sketchbook again under the canopy's gloom, something slipped free from between the pages. A photograph. It was Hannah, taken at the lake days before she vanished. Her smile strained, her eyes wide with fear. And in the blurred background, almost hidden in the tree line, stood Evan, watching. Do you want Chapter 4 to dive straight into Evan as the prime suspect? Or should we introduce a red herring to keep the audience guessing before the final reveal? The photograph burned in my hand, Hannah smiling at the lake, Evan watching from the trees. The easy explanation was that he'd been there, lurking. But my gut told me it wasn't that simple. I drove back into town, the sketchbook hidden under the passenger seat. Every shop window I passed seemed to hold eyes that followed me. Maybe Hannah hadn't been paranoid. Maybe she'd been the only one who truly saw what was happening here. At the diner, I slid into a booth and ordered coffee I didn't need. Across the room, Marcy, the waitress who'd been in my class years ago, watched me with thinly veiled curiosity. When she finally came over, she leaned close. "You shouldn't be back," she whispered, too low for anyone else to hear. I stared at her. Why? What do you know? Her eyes darted toward the sheriff sitting 2 tables away, nursing his own mug. Hannah didn't just disappear. She made people angry. People who don't like questions. Before I could press her, Sheriff Blake stood and left some bills on the counter, his gaze locking with mine on the way out. Warning or threat, I couldn't tell. When Marcy walked away, I spotted something on the edge of her order pad. Tiny sketches. Eyes. Just like Hannah's book. The walls of this town were closing in, everyone carrying fragments of the same secret. Later that evening, I parked outside Evan's cabin, engine off, watching from the shadows. Light flickered in his window. Through a gap in the curtains, I saw him pacing, phone pressed to his ear. I told you she's digging. If she finds out... He stopped suddenly, as though he'd sensed me. His gaze shot toward the window. I ducked, heart hammering. A twig snapped behind me. I spun around, ready to face Evan, but it wasn't him. It was Marcy, standing just beyond the tree line, her apron still on, her eyes wide. "You don't get it," she hissed, stepping closer. It wasn't Evan. He's hiding something, yes, but he's not the one you should fear. Then who? My voice cracked, her face paled. They'll kill me if I say, just leave before you vanish too. She shoved a folded note into my hand and bolted back toward town, disappearing into the dark. I unfolded it under the moonlight, one word scrawled in frantic ink. Blake. The note burned in my pocket all night. Blake. The sheriff who'd dismissed Hannah's case, who'd stared me down at the diner like I was the intruder. At dawn, I drove back to the lake. Mist clung to the water. The dock nothing but a ghostly outline. I half expected Hannah's jacket to be there again, folded neatly, like the first night. Instead, I found footprints, fresh ones, leading to the boathouse. Inside, the air reeked of mildew and something metallic. The lantern still hung from the hook, swaying, as though someone had only just left. On the floor lay another photograph. Hannah again, but this time she wasn't smiling. Her eyes were wide, fearful, caught mid-glance, as if someone had taken it seconds before she vanished. Behind me, the door creaked. Sheriff Blake filled the frame, his shadow cutting across the boards. His hand rested on the butt of his gun. "You should have left," he said quietly. "Some truths don't belong in the light." My pulse roared. "What did you do to her?" His jaw tightened. She wouldn't stop asking questions. She was going to ruin everything. This town. The people who depend on me. I gave her a choice. She didn't take it. I backed toward the wall, every instinct screaming to run. "So you killed her." A flicker of something crossed his face. Guilt maybe, but too brief to matter. I kept order. That's what matters. He stepped closer, boots heavy on the boards. Then a voice rang out from the shadows. "Order? Is that what you call it?" Evan emerged from the far corner, eyes blazing. In his hand was Hannah's sketchbook. She trusted me with the truth. I was too much of a coward to act. Not this time. Blake swung his gun toward him. "Stay out of this." The air snapped taut. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then Evan hurled the sketchbook at Blake's face. The sheriff flinched, just enough for me to grab the lantern and swing. Glass shattered, flame burst, boards catching fire in an instant. Smoke swallowed the room. Evan yanked me toward the door as Blake cursed, lost in the haze. We stumbled out onto the dock, coughing, the boathouse behind us cracking with fire. From the woods, figures emerged, half the town drawn by the smoke. Marcy was among them, her face pale but resolute. She pointed at Blake as he stumbled out, choking, his gun lost. "She's not lying," she shouted. "He made Hannah disappear." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Whispers swelled into shouts. Blake froze, caught not by cuffs, but by the weight of every eye in town finally seeing him. As the flames devoured the boathouse, I clutched Hannah's last photo to my chest. Her body was never found. But her truth was. And in this town of silence and shadows, that was the beginning of the end.